Hello, everyone. This is Tony Kaufman and my son Todd, and we're here to discuss parenting of transgender children. And I'd like Todd to give us the intro.
Um, so I came out at around 18 to 19 as a trans guy. Before that, I strongly identified as a lesbian. And even before that, for a brief stint, I closely identified with the term bisexual. Um, but so all again, I just want to specify that this isn't necessarily a talk about um, raising a transgender child, as like maybe you have a kid in elementary, middle school, to maybe even high school who's going through gender dysphoria. We don't have a necessarily. This isn't going to be a show that or a talk that's a firsthand account of that experience or aspect of transition. But it will closely go into maybe some of the feelings that your child or loved one may be feeling, and how that affects the family around them, but also what they're going through as well.
Thanks. And when you say dysphoria, what exactly do you mean by that?
So dysphoria is, as far as I know, also a medical term a mental health term that can be applied in a couple of ways. But when we're talking about gender dysphoria in particular, it is the feeling of how to put this, the feeling of something being ascribed to you that does not fit you. I used to put it as waking up on the wrong side of the bed every morning, but sometimes it can be even more a little societally onset, like say you had a label just ascribed to you that in no way fit who you were, your personality, and just for some reason everyone around you was unified in the thought that you were this thing.
Okay.
Like, wouldn't that be a little just jarring for you, for your reality from the outside world, to just have everybody assume that you were something that you in no way had ever chosen to be, thought you were, considered yourself as, like it
Yeah.
was literally just a title thrust upon you.
Right.
Like it can have some serious mental side effects, including like I currently to this day am just a pro at uh, what is it called? Um, just walking away just out of my body. I can just leave at pretty much any point in time. There has been points where my reality has been so uncomfortable to me for such a long extended amount of time that I just know how to not be there anymore, which kind of sucks because it's also limiting my experience with life and the world and my interactions with it.
Okay. So well, I mean, I noticed that there was a difference since you were a child, like maybe third grade, where I mean, you really had trouble um, wearing a dress, hated wearing dresses, did not necessarily, I mean, there was just a difference in you from the rest of
Yeah.
the guys. Yeah.
I know that there's kind of there's a small stigma against using the term tomboy with people currently in unless they like ascribe it to themselves. But for all intents and purposes, I think as growing up, I would say that I definitely grew up as a tomboy. But I wasn't necessarily upset with being a girl at the time.
Mhm.
And I want to throw that distinction out there because there's also a common trans narrative is, oh, I've known since I was a child. But the truth is, I really didn't, even despite how masculine I guess I was for a girl. Because I was also very into girl power. I was always the girl wearing the hat at summer camp. I mean, like, there's a lot of, say, lesbians who have a very similar childhood to me who don't have gender dysphoria and who never developed it. And there's a conversation in there that I'm not necessarily going to like unpack right now.
Okay.
but it is about the concept of humanity is fluid, our gender is fluid, our sexuality is fluid. Like these are not aspects of a person that stay the same or constant throughout their entire life, you know?
That seems to be a newer concept. I mean, because I'm coming at it from the boomer generation where, I mean, these were black and white.
Yeah, so here's
Yeah,
the problem is that it's not a new concept. It's a concept that was purposefully squashed out of cultural understanding. But that doesn't mean that it was never around before, and that doesn't mean that it's
yeah.
not a natural part of humanity. It means that it was something that, for the purpose of probably capitalism, it was squashed out of us needing it, wanting it, understanding it. I mean, let's not be blind to the fact that before most of the cultures that we have on this land now, there were cultures that recognized up to 6 to 7 genders. Like these are
Mhm.
not new concepts. These are just things that we are being given words for again.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I remember, like, again, you're being, I mean, from the third grade on, you had already kind of defined yourself.
Mhm.
And I guess you had the need to define yourself in one bucket so that your dad and I could understand. And that bucket ended up, I mean, for lack of a better term, was lesbian,
Mhm.
and something we really didn't understand was the bisexual. But we've kind of come through that, I think. And so, parents, if you're having this conversation right now with your child, I mean, it's not unnatural to go from one phase to the other. And I hate to call it a phase because it's not really a
Well,
phase.
well, here's my other problem, I guess, with how we consider the term phases is that show me a constant state of self. It's okay if it's a phase. Like every state of your life is a phase. High school's a phase. Middle school's a phase. Liking the color purple's a phase. Liking the color green. Like, there's so many phases that are perfectly valid states of existence. And there's no reason to completely discredit something just because that wasn't there yesterday. You can go to a gas station that was built last week just because it wasn't there last month doesn't mean it's not usable.
Okay.
Like, and I'm sorry, that may seem abstract, but I feel like it's very much holds true for humanity. You can learn any aspect of how you want to be. If you want to be a more confident leader, you can develop leadership skills.
Okay.
And I feel like that kind of goes into almost anything. Any state of self isn't necessarily permanent. You are always, as a person, adjusting and learning and growing.
Well, if we look at transition, I mean, I remember we had to make a variety of decisions.
Mhm.
One decision was if you were going to follow the masculine trail, we had to get you into therapy. They had to make sure that this is something you wanted before they ever gave you any medications, things like that.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of problems with how the medical industry treats transition in general. Let me preface with that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, they will make trans people go through a ridiculous amount of steps to get the things that they want. And so that right there is a big squasher for the arguments against people who think that, oh, they're just letting 6-year-olds get surgeries. No, that doesn't happen. There's literally no way that that can happen. You don't know how many trans people wish they could just walk into a room and be like, can I get a surgery now? Like, no, there's no way. Especially, like, honestly, unless they just happen to have $20,000 laying around, no. And even that's probably not going to happen in the United States at that price. So, like, yeah, there's a number of doctors involved, there's therapists involved, there's psychiatrists involved. For me,
Yeah.
there was support groups involved.
Even clergy. Yeah.
Um, if that's a route that's important to them, yes. But yeah, there is just a number of steps that have to be met. Of
Yeah.
uh, yeah, but my where was I going to go with it? One of my biggest issues in general is simply that uh, it's all at your doctor's whim. And so if you happen to go to a doctor that in any way is like skeptical of the trans thing, your entire your entire life course could be, I mean, pretty much
Shot.
SOL
Yeah.
until you find a doctor that is okay with trans people, that's willing to consider that that might be a thing that helps people, you know?
Well, I remember when you used to volunteer at the LGBT center.
Well, the trans, yeah,
Right.
the transgender center.
The transgender center. But why did you feel the need to go help others in terms of what were they going through? What's the norm out there for kids who are seeking
Well,
this life?
so let me, even though it doesn't seem like it's been that long since I was over there, things have changed a lot for kids now versus when I was first starting. For instance, there's a lot more resources now, and I'm also going to preface that I'm coming at this from a trans masculine perspective. In more layman's terms, I guess this is transitioning from girl to boy. I have issues with that terminology as well, but for now we'll stick with that.
Okay.
But so when like now people, it's a big active Tumblr has honestly been a big help to the community in getting resources across, even just like simple infographics like, hey, don't use saran wrap to bind yourself with because you can fracture a rib, because you can medically harm your lungs.
Okay, hold on, because we haven't touched that at all, but that was one of my biggest fears and concerns about why you needed top surgery, is because I was so worried that the binding process, which is, I mean, women think in terms of corsets, but I mean, they just cover your entire chest because trans girls don't,
trans boys
don't want to.
And that's also a generalization. That's not necessarily true for everybody. Some people may not have so much of an issue with their chest. Honestly, closer to the time when I had top surgery, if people would have been more willing to accept me as a dude with boobs, like if I felt like I could have just walked to the beach possibly and been okay with people seeing me topless and it wouldn't have caused a stir, probably would not have been a problem. It ended up like really a lot of the things, I do want them. Like, let me put it this way, I didn't want the surgery. I am more comfortable with myself now. I can walk around in public now, and I can definitely I feel free to be myself. But I am also willing to consider the idea of a world where if society hadn't put a standard on what my body should have looked like, I don't know that I would not have been just as comfortable as myself there, you know? So there's just a lot of variables to, I guess, to transition for individual people. And that's something that I also really want to emphasize, is that not everybody is on the same track. Some people's ideas of what they want their bodies to be may not align with what you consider that gender or that type of person to be like. But what I really want to get across to you is to trust that person. If you let them make their own choices and they have no one to blame but themselves at the end of the day, it's fine. They will find a way to deal with their choices. Like, sometimes I have to sit back and I want to go in. I'm around a decade into my transition. And there are some days where I sit back and think, did you make a mistake? Because who doesn't, about any choice in their life, think, did I make a mistake? You just bought a new car. Did I just make a mistake? Like, I mean, you think that about any choice in your life. So sometimes, yeah, I sit back and think, did I make a mistake? But the real answer at the end of the day is there's nothing that past me could have done or wanted to do that current me can't do, and vice versa, frankly. If at some point I really do feel way more femininely aligned than I do now, and I decide to transition again, that's my prerogative. That's up to me. I mean, and Yeah, it may be asking a lot to ask the people around me to get used to things again, but that's fine because if they love you, and they do, they will.
Do you mind if we share some photos?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen, guys, and if you have any questions coming in, please feel free to ask. I mean, we're happy to help. This is one photo, for example. Okay, screen two. So this is okay. So this is what? How old were you there? That was so cute. You must have been like 5, maybe 4 or 5.
No, I think it's closer to 6.
Closer to 6. But this would have been 1997, more or less, 1995.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we've got you.
That was like 3 years ago.
And this was like 3 years ago. So there's one that shows the transition of you've always been a clown. You've always been funny. So that was kind of really cute.
Harsh words.
No, this is now this is really interesting.
That was my last school year. That was my last school picture. And that the other on the right was my best friend or one of my best friend's weddings.
And this is your now wife.
Yeah,
they've been married for almost a month. But that's just a huge transition, and I mean I can see you actually look just beautiful on both. All right, and then we've got this one here, which is when you've worked at the Renaissance Festival.
Yeah, I've been a runny for again over a decade, probably about 12, 13 years now, and it really is my home away from home. But yeah, this was. I know I'm not in costume on the right, but I was at the Ren Fair that day. I was at work.
So, now this you would have been what 15?
15.
15. Okay.
Maybe 16 if I was after my birthday.
Yeah, and that was your costume at the Houston Renaissance Festival, which Texas, which is just like the largest in the world. Anyway, so let's look at this one. Now this one is really interesting.
Here's my timeline.
1996. You were 5.
Yeah, I think you can zoom in on it.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sorry. Oh, that's good. See, that's why he gets the big bucks. All right, so that's 1996, and then to 2000.
Yeah.
Just
so I would have been
gorgeous.
about 5 in that first picture.
Is this us at?
That was at Ground Zero.
Okay. Oh, that's right, in New York. I remember that. Still have problems going there. And then we've got the 2007, and then the 8.
Yeah, those are high school. You can tell I'm thrilled.
All right, 2010.
Yeah, that's about when Stephanie and I started dating.
Yeah, it's been like 11 years. The 2011. You've always been super photogenic, right? Yeah, you just amaze me. And then now you're starting that between here and there. You actually started with the treatments.
Well,
right?
Yeah. So in about 2010 is about when I started on testosterone.
Okay.
Now, my transition timeline is a little skewed for most people because I was actually told to take the wrong dosage and took about 1/10 of what I should have been taking. So my transition was prolonged by about 2 years for most people's secondary puberties, if you want to call it that. It usually happens in about a year. Mine decided to take a little leisure stroll. But so that was fixed at about 2013, and about between 2013 and 2014 is when I had top surgery. I believe that picture, the 2014 picture, was my first time at the beach after that.
So that was
a dad. Yeah, South Padre.
Yeah, South Padre. So you see, the transition basically from the younger Todd to the today Todd, and actually, you have a bunch of new wedding pictures that we can show, but not right now. We don't want to bore everybody, but anyway, that's our slideshow for the day. But here's the reality: is I have been witness to so many of Todd's friends that and so many episodes where Todd has had to deal with absolutely the worst things happening to his friends. And it's because, parents have kicked them out of their home. They don't know who to talk to. They don't know where to go. So parents, please talk to your kids. I mean, we've had so many situations and so many times when from nighttime to daytime, Todd has lost friends forever. because
Yeah.
they had no recourse. They felt so depressed, and it was so important that they just felt some love.
If you are somebody who is wanting to help and support the trans community, there's a number of ways that you can. One of the most direct action ways that you can is to find a local trans help agency and even go so far as to offering a couch to them if they have somebody in need of placement. There's a number of foundations and shelters and overnight shelters that will not accept trans people in general. So they're often left to freeze on the street, to be open to abuse, to be taken advantage of, um, and queer homelessness and trans homelessness in particular is rampant. So direct action, by all means, is the best way to help. If you are somebody in position to give monetary gain, there's a number of trans charities and so forth that you can give to, and I'm sure that we'll find some links and post those as well. Um,
So that'll happen when we do the deep dive. What I wanted to accomplish on this session and was basically to let people see and feel and hear, not only from a parent but from the actual child, and just see that the reality is, I mean, no, I don't care who they are. They're still your kids, and they need love, and they need to be hugged once in a while.
I just want to throw out there that one of the big topics that came up when I was going through transition was the feeling of my parents losing a child. But I want to throw out there that you're not losing anybody. If anything, your kid is just trying to show you more of who they are.
Well, we even had to deal with that with your brothers. I mean, we've got uh, your brother, and then your half brothers and your step brothers. So basically, in our family, there's my eldest girl, and then five brothers, and then you. And one of the hardest things that we had to come to terms with was one of the brothers saying, "You don't understand, Mom. We basically had to deal with the going away forever of Ariel and the coming in of Todd, and they, I don't know, they missed their little sister, or because you're the baby."
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just want to throw out there that only one of my brothers was ever somebody that I've had an actually super close relationship with. And so, honestly, and I'm sorry if this sounds harsh, but anything that they were losing was their own expectation of me. And I can't be held responsible for that.
well, that's pretty clean getaway there.
I'm sorry.
That's, yeah,
Like I mean, all of my brothers are at least 4 years older than me. I am sorry that they had some notion of who I was supposed to be from when I was what, a baby.
yeah.
But again, I'm
This is who you
sorry.
are.
Like, uh, yeah. I mean, frankly, Ariel was a miserable person, and I'm sorry if that was someone who they were attached to, but that was not a healthy person.
I understand. And folks, I mean, if this is your first ever that you've heard of how to parent a transgender child, the next video that we're going to do is a much deeper dive into the raising of one, all the way from from where they started to their wedding, and so we will also talk a little bit about the issues that are so political and socio charged. For example, the bathroom bill.
Just throwing out
Uh,
there that when somebody comes out as trans, regardless if they were political or not to begin with, the world has made them political
oh, I
now. So,
can you mention two or three charged situations at this moment?
I mean, we live in Texas, where thankfully the bathroom bill did not get passed, which would have basically said that I would have had to use a women's bathroom because this is someone that you want to see in a women's bathroom. And I usually have way more facial hair than this.
Yeah.
So, uh, yeah. And it would have basically made it legal for cops to walk into any bathroom and ask anybody, cis or trans, to see their ID. So I don't know how some people feel about this, but I know some people don't take kindly to being assumed to be trans. I know some women take strong offense to that.
Well,
So,
there was a principal in a high school, if you remember, that
who
was making
literally,
people pee in front of him.
he literally followed a trans boy into the bathroom
What a
and
perv.
started demanding that he prove his gender to him, which I don't know if you all can think of any other way for a child to be thought to do that other than showing this 45 to 50-year-old man their genitals. But that's not cool. Demanding
No.
somebody to go to the bathroom in front of you isn't cool. Harassing a child in a place of education is not cool. This is a place where kids are supposed to be able to come and learn, and I don't know if you all have ever been tried to, just go to the bathroom and have to genuinely fear for your life sometimes in there. It's not a great experience.
Well, I remember we went to a convention or something, and basically I could see that you were really upset, and I mean, you just finally let out one day and you said, it shouldn't be a crime, Mom, that I have to go pee. I mean, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, I have friends in other states who their bills did get passed, and they live there. So, um,
It's just really hard. Um, anyway, so we'll deal a lot deeper into those type of issues. And again, I'd love to have your questions. We'd love to answer them. Be sure and post them, and we will personally answer them. I know that we're pre-recording this, so we will personally answer your questions and help you if you do have. I mean, I'm volunteering our services to help you with
as
your child.
I want to note that some people get nervous about asking questions because they don't know what the right way to ask is. I want to note that as long as you are coming in a trying to open your mind and trying to just get more knowledge, I usually don't mind almost any phrasing. If you do ask something impolitely or incorrectly, I will correct you. But no, that's gentle correction. I'm not targeting you. It's just an educational moment.
Well, one of those moments is something that even the whole family had to get used to, and that was how we refer to you. So, what is the appropriate way for a parent and or a friend of a parent to relate to the child?
Um, Great start is to ask the kid, because again, this is something that can differ for everybody. I have some friends who don't mind that when their family refers to them as a younger self, that they refer to them as their old gender. I have some friends who are very, very vehemently like, I have been this gender my whole life. So it is very individualized. I feel like some parents may think of all of this as hard because it's going to make you have to talk to your kid a lot more than some parents may be used to. But yeah, just have the conversation with them, ask them. I guarantee you, your kid will be so much more grateful that you are willing to learn from them and what they have to say about it than you trying to just come off as knowledgeable. I That said, Google is your friend a lot of the time. Like, if you have some basic questions, basic inquiries, curiosities about anatomy that people are natural to be curious about, Google's a great resource. It'll give you some basic understanding. You can try and do a basic cursory search to make sure that your sources are coming from trans-friendly sources. Um, and honestly, just Googling trans resources for parents or trans resources for siblings or anything like that are great starts.
So, I mean, I think one of the hardest things for our family to do is to stop referring to you as her or she, and I mean that took time, and you were
Yeah.
very patient with us, and I appreciate that.
After a while, I was like, if we're in public and they call me she, they're the ones who look crazy. So.
Not that I don't look crazy the rest of the time, anyway. But folks, anyway, we're honored. Stacy, thank you for having us on your show. This is step one. Again, we'll have the next recording, and that will be a deeper dive with I think deeper questions and resolutions and what how we can help friends and that kind of thing. I also want to acknowledge a friend of mine whose name is Jackie Simmons, who has written the book to curb teenage suicide. Not necessarily because they're transgender or because they're gay, but simply just teenage suicide because they're so depressed. She's written a book called Make It a Great Day, and for every one of those books that you buy, she gives one away to a student in a variety of high schools that just need to understand that they're not alone. And I think that's one of the most powerful things we can let you walk away from this interview with.
Studies have literally proven that kids, regardless of sexuality, gender, etc., um, have a significant reduction in suicide rate if they feel like they have one accepting adult in their life. Just one.
Thank you. From Todd and Tony Kaufman, I want to thank you all. God bless. To be continued.